Today I'm going to be critiquing generation loss. If you don't know what generation loss is, it is a project created by Ronbu. The first and only so far is called The Social Experiment, which spans 3 live streams. Ronbu finally released the Founder's Cut, which is an edited version of the live streams, and I grabbed it with my grubby little hands and I'm going to be dissecting it. Disclaimers, I'm only a film student and not a professional, so you should not take my word as law, and I only know what I'm talking about a little bit. This is my opinion, you can have a differing one. I do not know what medium this is supposed to be. It may be intended to be a live stream, which then changes to critique, but I'm going to be critiquing the Founder's Cut as a movie and independent from Ronbu as a content creator. No matter what your intentions are for storytelling purposes, if you don't have good actors and you don't have real actors, it's not gonna get it across as fully as it could have been. That was and is one of my biggest critiques of Generation Loss from the very first time I watched it live when it was live streamed to Ronbu's channel, and rewatching the Founder's Cut several times to make this video. Title screen. Ooh, part 1. One of the issues that I see that continued to pop up over and over again was how it did not use Chekhov's gun. The story added and brought attention to a lot of points and details, and then didn't have a reason to do that. One of the first things that I noticed was the grandma's ashes. That was the first thing they fell over. It introduced chat interactions in the stream. However, for the Founder's Cut, I don't think that was a good part to leave in, because there's no reason for grandma's ashes to be there. The second thing is the 3 locks on the door that Ronbu then collected the keys for. It was introduced and he went on this thing of finding the keys, but then the locks weren't actually used. Again, for the story, there was no reason for those locks to be there, and there was no reason for those locks not to be used. Another big one was the door that went to different dimensions. There was nothing in the story that explains why that door exists, why it's doing these magical things, why you're getting transported to different dimensions. It was just set up for the bit. It seems to be a plot device that was only there for the reason of making a joke out of it, and having a joke, and it didn't actually apply to the full story, which cheapens it and makes it kind of just be like, why is it there? A few more, I'm just gonna kind of list them off. But Germa's playhouse in the basement, no real reason that's there. The creature that Slimesicle made, also no reason to have that in the story. Why the wall is cuttable. Slimesicle, when he was talking, explains that it was cuttable. Should have said something to be why. That's just kind of the small things that I noticed. One thing that really pisses me off, that it's so minuscule and doesn't matter, but the pocket sand. Because we see a close-up of Ronbu's hand reaching down, grabbing the sand, putting it in the pocket. There's then they say a line, pocket sand, walk in the door, say the line again.
All right, got some sand in there now.
And there is so much attention being brought to this specific detail. But all of that and all of that attention being brought to it only for it to be a choice that the audience could use when fighting Slimesicle, and it didn't even do anything of use or value either for Slimesicle or Ronbu. So why was there so much attention brought to it? So part 2, I am not a fan of. I'm gonna put this out there immediately. I do not like this part. I did not like the stream. It was very boring to me, and I still didn't like it in the Founder's Cut. This is going to be biased from my part because I find it hard looking at it objectively because it's really boring for me. I liked the first two rooms of part 2. I liked the changes and the introduction of the Riddler and Ron being stuck to the chair, finding the key, and I loved the surgical room and the changes that were made from the stream to the Founder's Cut. I think those were really well done, and that the cut to reality and the faraway shot, the framing of the faraway shot when it's like mostly empty and it's kind of off in this corner to give this feeling of unbalance and unease, and Charlie's acting in that scene, absolutely beautiful, really well done. You know, chills down the spine when you felt that. That's the instance where this starts to dip more towards horror, and that was beautifully done. My issue with part 2 comes when we get into the carousel room, and my issue doesn't end until Ronbu's character sees the truth and realizes they're in a film. The biggest issue and the thing that drives me away so much is the fact that this is so long. This part is like 45 minutes long, and it maybe should have been 15, and that's being generous. Same with, why did we have to see the entirety of them playing Mousetrap? There only should have been a cut or 2 of them playing the game, and the instances that needed to be shown were the only things that needed to be in that. I also just started to lose sight of what the point of all of this was. The stakes weren't said well enough. Do they die? Do they not die? I don't know. It felt like you had to rely on the fact that you knew what Saw was to understand this entire part. And because of the fact that I didn't care for Rambo's character at this point, any sort of danger that they were in didn't really hit home and wasn't very interesting. Let's move on. Well, actually no, small thing that's just, ooh, when the camera cuts to Ranbu like turning to face the camera, and then the next cut, the lighting and the colors are so different, it's insanely jarring. While these things are forgiven in the live streams, fix it in post, please, because ooh. Rambu now knows that what they were seeing wasn't real, and in fact, terrible, horrible things were happening to them and the people around them this entire time. And now they're in an abandoned mall, which, great set, by the way. This part, it became very clear that this was improv. If you're not following a script, and if you're not insanely confident about your improv skills, it's gonna feel awkward. There's not enough silence. They were talking and filling the silence way too much, which I think was a reflection of this being a live stream, which is what was the main problem in this section. Silence is a tool that you really need to use, and was not used as much as it needed to be. So yeah, when the whiteboards of the daily plans that were shown, I think would have been better if they were actually brainstorming plans, and it could have been a fun time to use, like how the cast scheduled it. It feels incredibly fake. It could have been purposeful for the set, but it doesn't feel that way. The streaming bit where people were streaming, it being placed in the food court, beautiful imagery. I loved that, and I love the part with Charlie. But my question is, how does Ranbu know Charlie?
Because again, at
Charlie!
10 subs, I'll be taking my balls out.
Charlie!
And just throw.
Does he know Charlie from the previous things that happened? Because Ranbu never mentions the fact that, oh yeah, I dissected you, or like, hey, you were that weird slime guy in the cabin. That could have been introduced in just dialogue that they were talking about, but that didn't happen. Which left it very confusing for users. Prosthetics were another struggle. The prosthetics themselves were pretty good quality from what I saw, but the way they were applied was not good, and I think it would have been beneficial to hire someone who knows how to do prosthetics well, especially with the puzzler or Germa's character that is like entire face prosthetics. The prosthetics looked good, but they looked like prosthetics on the face because they weren't properly put on. It didn't look good, and that can be really easily helped. Same thing with Hetch and getting like the gash. When they meet Hetch, the live stream then turns into a pre-recorded bit. The pre-recorded film was by far my favorite part of the entire thing. It was very well done. The coloring was great. The shot use was really good, and the music. Oh, the music was amazing. The music person did absolutely incredible in that part, and it fit so well, and it was gorgeous. I loved that part, especially when it opened up to the set of the first live stream. Beautiful. So well done. As for the ending bit, the voting time just felt way too long, and it was really dragged on. And I think that should have been cut down for the founder's cut. And the flashing images of Rambo as a child and getting the memories back, I think the flashing should have been not as quick because you could not see what was happening. I think it would be interesting to flash back and forth between short video clips. Overall, Hedge was not a well-written character. You can tell that he was going to betray him from the very beginning. There was no plot twist. It was incredibly obvious and felt very cheap in terms of storytelling. That is one of the points where the story was lacking the most, because the villain and the issue that Rambu was facing and has been going through this whole time is not a well-written villain, which then kind of cheapens the whole experience. It also was not a good actor who did Hedge. The voice acting was incredibly elementary. It felt like the actor was just reading a script. Every single time Hedge was on screen, I was so vividly reminded that I'm watching something and I'm watching a show that isn't real, which is not something you want. Hey, professional. This is said by a professional voice actor, not just from me. Yeah, overall, Hedge, not well done, not well voiced. I don't like how they looked. I've been ranting about Hedge for way too long. The biggest thing about this, my biggest critique and one of the easiest critiques to change is hire real actors. I know that having streamers and friends involved with it is a really fun experience, but overall I think took away so much. I think if actual actors were involved, it would have been an incredibly good piece of media. The sets and the set designs and the character outfits also felt very lacking. This in part has something to do with the budget, I feel, but especially in the cabin, the set design was just really lackluster. Everything felt like the bare minimum was there to make the set look like what it had to be, but not in an intentional way. The way Ranbu was dressed, I don't like it, and I don't think it looked good on camera. I feel like there should have been more thought put into the outfits and what they were wearing, especially with it starting out as like a 90s sitcom. You could have done a lot more with the costumes and made it look much more interesting. I feel like this entire project is gone about in the way of a stream and a streamer making a project. And you can see that through the people that Ranbu works with, both the streamers that are acting and all of the behind the scenes people. They also worked for the Germa's Playhouse and I think one or two other streamers projects. And I feel like that was the biggest detriment to this. And taking more time pre-production. Writing more of a script so that the improv doesn't feel weird, and having more of a structure to things and scripting more things, I think will be very helpful, as well as this one I think. Oh, and rehearsals. The live stream part of it feels like the first run. And if you're going to do a live stream of something, I think everyone needed to do at least 3 more full run-throughs of the entire project, practicing everything that happens. Final things. Overall, I thought this was an absolutely wonderful project. I loved watching it when it was first streamed, and I loved watching the Founder's Cut. I'm just a film major, and therefore I critique everything. I think the main thing, it just comes down to the fact that this is Ranbu's first major production. It feels like a student film, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that because it's their first production and they're learning. For a first production, it is very well done, and the things that I have to critique are mainly just from a lack of experience. Thank you for watching the video all the way through. Since you obviously liked the video so much, you should drop a like and follow. I would love to hear your guys' opinions and other critiques that you may have in the comments. Thank you so much, babes. Bye!